Good morning, I'm Gretchen Ho. It is a Thursday, the 8th day of May, bringing you Morning Matters because your mornings matter. Let's get to the stories that matter today. The world awaits. Black smoke rises from the chimney of the Sistine Chapel, signaling that no pope has been elected on the first day of the conclave. Former President Rodrigo Duterte's defense team sought to remove 2 judges from the ICC's jurisdiction ruling, but the court has rejected their request. And the National Bureau of Investigation has subpoenaed 40 content creators for allegedly spreading disinformation on social media. However, only 5 lawyers representing the vloggers showed up at the NBI yesterday. Welcome to our program, Morning Matters, where we talk about the issues you need to know for the rest of your day. Now, first on the agenda, black smoke emerged from the chimney of the Sistine Chapel, indicating that no new pope has been elected on the first day of the conclave. Here is the report.
A special mass was held at St. Peter's Basilica in the Vatican ahead of the formal entry of the cardinal electors into the Sistine Chapel for the 2025 Papal Conclave.
Insieme con Maria,
Cardinal Giovanni Battista Re, Dean of the College of Cardinals, presided over the Mass, calling for unity and prayer. He expressed hope that the cardinals would elect a pope suited to the Church's present needs. Following the Mass, the cardinal electors assembled in the Pauline Chapel. In reverse order of precedence, they began their solemn procession to the Sistine Chapel, chanting the Litany of the Saints and the hymn Veni Creator Spiritus, invoking the guidance of the Holy Spirit. Once inside the Sistine Chapel, each cardinal approached the altar, placed a hand on the Gospels, and swore an oath of secrecy, pledging never to reveal anything that occurs during the conclave. When the final oath was completed, the traditional proclamation Extra Omnes, meaning everyone out, was declared, signaling the exit of all non-essential personnel. A 2/3 majority, or 89 votes, is required to elect the new pope. At 9 p.m. on Wednesday, Vatican time, a black smoke emerged from the chimney of the Sistine Chapel. This indicates that no new pope has been elected yet. The next round of voting is expected today, May 8.
The cardinals return to the Apostolic Palace this Thursday to continue the papal conclave. The day begins with Mass and morning prayers at the Pauline Chapel at 8:15 a.m. Vatican time or 2:15 p.m. in the Philippines. The first round of voting takes place at 9:15 a.m., followed by a possible smoke signal around 10:30. White smoke means a new pope has been elected. Black means none yet. After lunch, the cardinals return for another round of voting at 4:30 p.m. with another possible smoke signal after 5:30. The day concludes with evening prayers and the cardinals return to Santa Marta at 7:30. The Department of Transportation has reopened applications for the consolidation of public utility vehicles under the Public Transport Modernization Program. Here is the report.
The Transportation Department has reopened the consolidation for public utility vehicle operators that have yet to join the government's modernization initiative. Executive Order 2025-009 allows previously unconsolidated operators to apply for the program and still continue operations. The DOTR also did not set a deadline for those who wish to join. The LTFRB has also been tasked to provide provisional authority to drivers that were forced to stop plying routes after failing to consolidate. The provisional authority is good for a year and can be renewed for another 12 months. For routes that still do not have cooperatives or have less than 60% consolidation, members are also given the option to put up their own.
Pag less than 65% pa lang ang nagpa-participate in a certain route, yes, pwede kang sumama. Or they can create new routes and then sa kanila namin ibibigay. Pag sinabi namin entered into a program, dapat may specific route ka na. Hindi pwedeng you will enter into a program and then wala kang sasabihin na rota na tatahakan.
The DOTR also wants all old PUV units to undergo a roadworthiness exam as part of the requirement for consolidation.
Kaya nga po importanteng maintindihan ng mga kasamahan natin. At isa naman din po ang nagsabi na kung hindi roadworthy ang aming jeep, hindi namin yan papabiyahin. Kailangan lang natin siguraduhin yun. Na safety ang paramount na concern natin. Kung roadworthy yung mga jeep, makakabiyahe po yan.
Since 2017, the PUV modernization program has suffered multiple setbacks, most of which were due to the issue of consolidation. Latest data from the LTFRB says 86% of PUVs have consolidated, but only 43% of this number has been approved. The reopening of consolidation applications has been scheduled next week after the midterm elections.
Pag-asa is monitoring a low-pressure area last spotted east-northeast of Cuyo, Palawan. And for more updates on that, we have weather specialist Lori de la Cruz.
Good morning, ma'am, and to all our viewers and listeners. The low-pressure area is still affecting most of Visayas. Bicol region, Mimaropa, and Calabarzon, and it's causing cloudy skies with rain showers and thunderstorms over the mentioned areas. Meanwhile, Caraga and Davao region will experience cloudy skies with scattered rain showers and thunderstorms due to the easterlies. But for Metro Manila and the rest of the country, we will experience generally partly cloudy to cloudy skies with chances of thunderstorms in the afternoon or evening. As to the heat index forecast, here in Metro Manila, we're expected to experience maximum of 41 degrees Celsius heat index or init factor. So we're advising the general public to continuously take precautionary measures to prevent heat exhaustions, heat cramps, and even heat stroke. That's the latest from Pag-asa. This is Lori de la Cruz.
Miss Lori, itong low-pressure area, parang naibalita po namin a week ago. Is it the same low-pressure area that brought rains to southern Philippines? Or is this a different one?
Different, ma'am. Different po.
Okay. What is this low-pressure area? Does it have a potential to get stronger? Ano pong basa po natin dito sa LPA na ito? At palabas na po ba siya ng bansa?
According to forecast, unlikely pa rin ito mabuo into a tropical depression. Possible pong ma-dissipate o malusaw ito in the next 24 hours.
Kasi nakakagulat po, Miss Lori, na sa gitna ng matinding init o sa gitna ng summer, biglang umuulan ng medyo malakas. What is happening with our weather? Is this an isolated event? Normal po ba ito? O meron kayong nakikitang pattern sa mga LPA na pumapasok sa Philippine Area of Responsibility?
Normal naman po siya, ma'am, at this time of the year, lalong-lalo na papunta na po tayo sa transition period kung saan in the coming weeks, posible kahit pa paano mag-start na po yung onset or mag-onset na yung rainy season sa western section of the country.
In the middle of summer, we are in the middle of transition already. It is early May still.
Yes po. Papunta na po tayo, nasa early transition period na po tayo.
Oo. Ito po ba ay kakaiba? Kasi naalala ko nung mga nakaraang taon, yung init, tumatagal pa yan hanggang mga June. I mean, is this, what's happening, is this peculiar? Or was it brought by somehow global warming or climate change?
Ma'am, usually yung May or month of May, we're calling it as a month of thunderstorms. Kaya mas frequent po talaga yung thunderstorms pagdating po ng Mayo. Matindi lang yung init kasi nasa tag-init season tayo. Tapos may mga mataas, pag before the thunderstorm occurs, mataas yung tinatawag nating relative humidity o yung water vapor content in the atmosphere. So isa po yun sa mga nagpapainit ng ating pakiramdam. So ngayon, dahil mas frequent na yung mga thunderstorms, mas medyo mainit yung pakiramdam na nararamdam natin, yung init factor, lalong na before the thunderstorm, of course. So, ibig sabihin, nasa tag-init season pa rin po tayo, pero may mga pag-ulan-ulan na sa hapon at gabi during May. Pero usually po, ang onset ng rainy season, either end of May po yan, hanggang, ang range po yan, hanggang 2nd or 3rd week of June.
So yung init po ay mararamdaman natin until mid-June. Did I get that correct?
Ang init naman po, ang peak po, nasa peak na po tayo, halos patapos na po yung peak, and then most likely magsasubside na po ito by 3rd week of May.
Okay. Ano pong advice po ninyo sa mga tao, lalong-lalo na sa mga nagpaplano ng kanilang summer season? Anong dapat nilang gawin na ngayon dahil we are in the middle of transition?
We're still advising the general public na mag-ingat pa rin po as much as possible. Iwasan muna yung direct exposure sa sunlight in the afternoon or in the noontime, direct exposure or long exposure sa ganitong klaseng init as it may cause heat cramps, heat exhaustions, and stay hydrated. Uminom po ng wastong baso ng tubig araw-araw para po maiwasan yung dehydration.
At yung ulan po, saan po mararamdaman ngayong araw?
Here in Metro Manila, mostly in the afternoon or evening, and then in other areas po, especially the eastern section, very possible pa rin yung mga thunderstorms in the afternoon or evening. But for Visayas, as I mentioned po, Visayas, Mimaropa, Bicol Region, and Calabarzon ay magiging maulan due to low pressure area po.
Alright. Para sa mga lalabas sa kanilang mga tahanan, huwag po kayong magpalinlang sa init. Magdala po ng payong because rains are expected in the afternoon and in the evening. Maraming salamat sa pagpapaliwanag. At sabi kanina dun kay Ted Philo na nakikinig ako, na sa mga gustong magpa-construction daw, gawin na ngayon, lalo na habang tag-init pa. Dahil pag pumasok na yung tag-ulan, mahirap nang gawin ng mga yan, yung mga butas sa mga bubong at iba pa. Maraming salamat for the updates today. That was Pag-asa Weather Specialist Lori De La Cruz. The Land Transportation Franchising and Regulatory Board has summoned the bus company involved in the deadly SC-Tex collision for a hearing. The 53-year-old driver did not appear as he remains in detention in Tarlac. During the hearing, the bus company's counsel disclosed that the driver was under maintenance medication that may have caused him to fall asleep. LTFRB criticized the company for failing to monitor the driver's condition and questioned the conductor's absence and failure to act during the crash. A second hearing is scheduled for May 21, where both the driver and conductor are expected to explain their side.
Natakot siya na magpa-drug test kasi yung tinitake niya na maintenance. Ito yung sitwasyon sa mga kababayan natin. Marami naman sa atin hindi natin naiintindihan lahat yan.
Our findings really is there is negligence on the part of the driver. What we would like to establish is the knowledge of the management on the condition of the driver.
Don't go away. More on Morning Matters when we return. Good morning, I'm Gretchen Ho, and here in Morning Matters, we talk about the most pressing issues and give you the context behind the headlines. Today's headline is the Conclave in the Philippines is watching closely as Filipino cardinals emerge as possible candidates to be the next pope. Let's take a closer look at those Filipino prelates who could make history.
In 2013, the world saw history unfold as Cardinal Jorge Mario Bergoglio was elected the first pope from South America, taking the name Pope Francis. He ended centuries of European dominance in the papacy and led the church reform movement centered on compassion, simplicity, and service to the poor. Now, following his passing, the seat he left behind is vacant once again. And for the first time, talk of the possible modern-day Asian pope has gained global attention. Jesuit priest Father Nono Alfonso believes the next pope could come from Asia, with his close friend Cardinal Luis Antonio Tagle at the forefront.
Many of us, want na maipagpatuloy yung mga nasimulan ni Pope Francis. And therefore, many of us would want a leader similar, like Pope Francis, championing the poor, championing the environment, reforming the church.
Tagle, known affectionately as Chito, grew up in a humble home in Imus, Cavite. His childhood friends remember him as a joyful, friendly boy who once snuck out to play under the full moon.
Bihira naman siyang palabasin ng mother niya. Pag nakakatakas, ayun, mga takbo-takbuhan lang, konting ganyan, ganun lang ang aming mga banding nung maliliit pa.
Nung araw wala pa kami mga bakod. Kaya pagbaba mo ng hagdan ng takbo, laro-laro na kami, lalo na pag ang buwan na ibilog.
Long before his role in the Vatican, Tagle was already building a legacy, establishing a school for the poor and staying close to his roots.
Siya ang nag-initiate magkaroon ng eskwelahan for the poor. Ano po yung libre yung tuition? Hindi naman. Maraming beneficiary na nalilibre. Palagi siya doon naka-monitor sa amin, mga teachers, ganyan.
Cardinal Tagle's down-to-earth nature, his global experience, and his alignment with Francis's vision have made him a serious contender. But he's not the only Filipino being considered. Cardinal Pablo Virgilio Ambo David, known for his vocal stand on human rights during the Philippines' war on drugs, has also been called a dark horse in the conclave. David also served as the bishop of the Caloocan Diocese.
Yung effort po na maiparating yung mabuting balita sa mga nasa laylayan po, mga mahihirap, yung mga mangingista, yung mga hindi na po naabot talaga ng simbahan. So that's one of his well-known efforts.
Nakikita rin po natin dito also the trajectory of the church under Pope Francis, no? Na we are bringing the church to those in the margins.
And then there's Cardinal Jose Advincula of Manila, the most senior of the 3 Filipino cardinals. He is a quiet man known for peacemaking and consistently called for unity amid political turmoil. Whoever among the over 130 cardinals emerges as the next pope, only one thing is certain: the decision rests in the hands of the Holy Spirit.
To talk more about the ongoing conclave, we have Jesuit Communications Philippines Executive Director Father Nono Alfonso Jr. joining us on Morning Matters. Magandang umaga sa iyo, Father.
Good morning, Gretchen. It's SJ, not Junior.
SJ,
Society.
SJ. So sorry for that. No.
Okay.
Okay, before we talk about your good friend Cardinal Tagle, I wanted to get your thoughts on the first day of the conclave, from the mass to the procession to the oaths taken. What were the most moving moments for you?
Well, I guess the first point is that it impresses on us that it's a very solemn ritual, this election of the successor of Pope Francis. So yung paalala po ni Cardinal Ambo David when he left the Philippines for the conclave, sabi niya, it's a retreat, it's not a political exercise. So what we saw yesterday from the Mass that they held, to prepare themselves, to dispose themselves to the Holy Spirit, up to the oath-taking, as you said, and the closing of the doors of Sistine Chapel, emphasize that all of this is really a spiritual exercise.
Following 2,000 years of tradition. But one of the things that I noticed personally is the homily of Cardinal Reda, Dean of the College of Cardinals, who talked about the unity of the Church in these times. And unity, he says, does not mean uniformity, but a firm and profound communion in diversity. What do you think the Cardinal meant to say with that?
Yeah, maybe he was trying to underscore a factual, reality, which is that the cardinals are coming from very diverse backgrounds. For example, as we noted again and again, cardinals come from Europe, 40%, from Asia, 24%, from Latin America, another 23 to 24%, and Africa, 18%. So it's as diverse as that. You would remember, Gretchen, that in times past, ang nagboboto lang po sa Santo Papa ay yung mga taga-Roma lamang na mga pare, the clergy of Rome, because the Pope is also the Bishop of Rome. So whoever they select would be the Pope for the Universal Church. So now it's very diverse, and this diverse congregation of cardinals are facing diverse issues as well. So I guess napakaganda po ng homily niya to stress that factual reality.
Na hindi natin hinahanap yung pagkakapareho, bagkus yung pagtanggap sa kabila ng mga pagkakaiba. Pero talk about numbers, no? I also have my own set of numbers. As you mentioned, we have the most diverse set of cardinals, yet 69 countries from 5 continents. That is a record. Those are the representations. 108 taking part in their first conclave. 15 new countries created by Francis, and 80% of these cardinals were created under his time, 12 years. Help us understand what Pope Francis tried to do inside the bureaucracy of the Catholic Church, and what might be on the line with this conclave.
Yeah, that's a very good question. Sabi nila kasi parang namumulitika si Pope Francis that he was actually preparing for his successor. That is very far from the truth. Si Pope Francis was very consistent, 'di ba? Na he was all about the mission of the church, 'di ba? He reminded us that the church, we can be so occupied with the structure, with the, 'di ba, with our rights. They're very important, but for Pope Francis, it is the mission that is the most important. So sabi niya, I'd rather have a church that is dirty and bruised because the church is out on the streets, performing the mission, her mission, rather than a church that is so contained, so clean because of self-preservation, self-protection. So all of this, the creation of cardinals from what we call the global south would be very logical and rational, reasonable even. Dahil nga, di ba, ang karamihan ng mga Katoliko ay nasa global south, wala naman po sa Europe na. The churches in Europe, for example, have become museum pieces, di ba? Tourist attraction na lamang kasi kokonti na mga Katoliko. If Pope Francis is thinking about the mission of the church is in the global south where her greater population is located, di ba? So, in Asia, for example, in the Philippines, for example, ang dami natin, 85% are Catholics. So it's more of representation and mission. Yun po yung naiisip ni Pope Francis. Kaya gumawa siya ng maraming kardinal sa Global South, especially developing countries. People are saying, even observers, mga experts, they're saying that the future of the church is not in the West. The Catholic Church, it's not in the West. It's really among us Asians and Africans and even Latin Americans. So yung pong mga cardinals na ginawa ni Pope Francis are meant to prepare the church for that future. Not at all na parang inihahanda niya na yung kanyang successor.
Speaking of the Global South, some countries that were added to the list of countries represented by cardinals are Haiti, Cape Verde, Papua New Guinea, and South Sudan. I was listening to an interview this morning where a bishop said sa Nigeria, punong-puno yung mga simbahan. Pag kinumpara mo sa Europa, talagang nilalangaw. Mga Pilipino ngayon nandun sa mga simbahan sa Europa. Ano nangyayari sa Catholic Church in those countries in the global south? He called on the Catholic Church to actually look at these new territories and to see what's working.
Yeah, because we're in touch with our Catholic traditions, like for example, we celebrate them, diba? Kumbaga, hindi pa kasi tayo masyadong modernized, and once a country is modernized, you can say that it also becomes very secularized. But in the Philippines, for example, so parang blessing in disguise yan, Gretchen, di ba, na third world country tayo, developing country tayo, like yung mga kaibigan natin, kapatid natin sa Africa and Latin America. But because precisely of that underdevelopment, we're very open to our traditions, long-standing traditions, old traditions in the church. So, and napapasa natin, Pope Benedict XVI, his concern was, okay, marami pang nagsisimba, but can you pass that on to the younger generation. So he was struggling with the question of the transmission of the faith. Sa Pilipinas, pag nagsisimbang gabi po, pag nag-Holy Week, ang tinitingnan ko kung may mga bata. And thank God, napapasa ng mga magulang sa mga new generation of Catholics yung pananampalataya. So parang you can say that it's a blessing that we are compared to our Western brothers and sisters, we are underdeveloped, but it's a blessing because we still have our faith. It becomes, sabi nga ni Manoling Francisco, Father Manoling, yung tanging yaman natin. Mahirap man tayo, ang tanging yaman natin ay ang ating pananampalataya. So the faith in these countries, malakas na malakas, very strong.
At sabi nga nila, yung teknolohiya ay minsan nagdadala ng pagkadistansya mula sa spiritual. Pero speaking of the spiritual, history is so full of popes who should not even have been priests. If you take a look at the history of the Catholic Church, mayroong mga pope na may asawa, may anak, mayroong mga pope na allegedly ay binili yung kanilang posisyon. How could you say that this is the work of the Spirit, given even that, I guess, painful history, if you would describe it that way? How do we reconcile how the Church wants us to view the Pope versus the man who was elected Pope?
If you remember your theology here at Ateneo, Gretchen, di ba? Yes, we talk about the Holy Spirit because, and the Holy Spirit is at work in the world and especially in the church. St. Paul tells us that the church is the temple of the Spirit. And when we were baptized, the Spirit has been given us, and especially when we were confirmed. Pero, di ba, the principle is grace builds on nature. Parang even if God is helping us, if we are close to the workings of the Holy Spirit, wala siyang magagawa. Yun po ang kagalingan ng ating Panginoon. Hindi siya namimilit. So we have to learn to cooperate. That's why ito pong, before the conclave, diba, they had general congregations. Parang retreat yan diba? That they pray, they celebrate the Eucharist, and so on and so forth. And they're given points by very good retreat master, yung household retreat master nila, si Father Cantalamesa. So ano po to, you have to dispose yourself to the Spirit. Open your heart, open your mind, open your spirit. Otherwise, kahit anong kapangyarihan ng Espiritu, hindi po niya tayo pipilitin. That's why you mentioned that there were popes in the past na hindi nga dapat naging pare. The most controversial would be the Borgias, di ba? Pero yun nga, because what is important is for the human agent, the human instrument, the cardinals, to predispose themselves to the Holy Spirit. So to be open. St. Ignatius would tell us, ang daming mga espiritu. Merong good spirit, which is the Holy Spirit working in our lives. Pero meron ding mga masasamang espiritu, halimbawa, yung mga leakages dito po sa conclave, you will be surprised, may mga leakages pa. Yan po ay gawa ng masamang spirito. Siguro may mga kardinal na nagli-leak. Yun ay masama. So, we have to follow that principle. The human instrument is still free to accept or reject the help of the Holy Spirit. Okay? And grace builds on nature.
And speaking of bad spirits, we do know that there's a lot of disinformation going around at this time, even before the conclave, not just on one papabile, but on many. Ang daming mga pagtuligsa, But of course, we want to get down to the truth. I wanted to ask about Cardinal Antonio Tagle, Luis Antonio Tagle, who you've worked with for quite some time, 16 years, with his show, The Word Exposed. Anong pagkakakilala mo sa kanya? And may lumabas recently, actually, isang araw lamang, itong balita na siya daw ay addicted sa casino gambling. I know this is a sensitive topic. There are those who don't want to discuss this, even a CBCP, but it is good to know the truth. I mean, from your perspective and your point of view?
Isa lang ang sagot ko dyan. Napakasipag nitong si Cardinal Chito Tagle. If you look at his schedule, di ba, every hour meron po itong ginagawa. So, rather than any kinds of addiction, I can say na workaholic to. Yun yung addiction niya, trabaho. It's unthinkable, no? Yung sinasabi na nagsusugal si Cardinal. Baka nga hindi marunong yan kahit ng tong its eh. So, it's laughable even na they are saying that he goes to Macau, to gamble there at the casinos there, So number one, that his schedule is so crowded that he has no time for that. Sabi ko nga ang oras niya na hindi siya nagtatrabaho, dinadalaw niya yung kanyang mga magulang na medyo matanda na at may sakit, So yun yung kanyang free time. Alam po ng marami na hindi nga yan nakakapanood ng sine. Walang leisure time, wala pong bisyo. Yan si Cardinal Chito Tagle. Number two, sabi ko nga, he is a prelate of the church. Diba? Every movement, he is under the scrutiny of media. So, media ng Pilipinas, media ng Vatican, and there are, of course, protocols, diba? Because he is cardinal. So, unthinkable po na pwede na lang siyang pumunta kahit saan without media scrutiny and without asking permission from Rome. So, yung pong gambling niya sa Macau is definitely unthinkable and just fake news.
And I guess the timing of that piece of news, one day before heading into the conclave, is also, it raises questions. Go ahead.
Can I add two things? Number one, hindi na po yan yung mga gumagawa ng mga ganyan. That's useless in the sense na nasa Apostolic Constitution for the conclave, for the behavior of the cardinals. Wala na po silang contact sa media. They are forbidden to have even cell phones, di ba? Even newspapers bawal na sa kanila, So talagang because this is a spiritual exercise, spiritual event, talagang wala silang contact to the world. So, kaya hindi na po nila makikita yung mga ginagawang AI na fake news. And that's why yung nagsasabi na, on the other hand naman, ito ay mga pangangampanya, paninira para sa isang contender, etc. Hindi na rin yan, hindi na rin po yan aabot sa kanila. So, kumbaga, extra omnes, lumabas na kayo.
Extra omnes, yan nga ang sinabi, bago isara yung pinto doon sa Sistine Chapel. But Father Nono, I wanted to talk about another issue that Cardinal Tagle is being criticized on, and that is his silence on the former president's war on drugs. It was defined or described as deafening by an editorial of Vera Files. What would you have to say about that? Where did the Cardinal stand as of what you remember during Duterte's time?
Well, my friend Paterno Ismael at Rappler reviewed those times and he said na ang dami palang sinabi ni Cardinal Chito Tagle when he was Archbishop of Manila about the war on drugs. For example, in 2016, he already said in a mass na you cannot rule a country by killings. So as early as that time, our friends at Rappler reviewed those times and found out na ang dami niya pong sinasabi. That's number one. So ewan ko kung saan nanggagaling yung data ng Vera Files. Maybe they can verify their own data. And number two, ang leader po ng simbahan noon from 2016 until he left, he was assigned to Rome, 2019, was not Cardinal Chito Tagle. We want him to be the leader, di ba? How we desire him to be the leader kasi he's very friendly, etc. But the leader, the head, the president of the CBCP was not Cardinal Chito Tagle, but Soc Villegas, Cardinal Valles, and Cardinal Ambo David. They were the presidents. That's why it would be out of place of Cardinal Chito Tagle to speak in behalf of the CBCP because he was not the president. Pambibida yun kung gagawin niya po yan. So, and he never did that. And it was Ambo David, it was Soc Villegas who did all the talking, because they were rightfully to do so. Pangatlo po, having said that, marami pong ginawa si Cardinal Chito Tagle. I cite three things. Number one, I was in conferences that the Archdiocese of Manila organized. Nandun yung mga militar, nandun yung DILG, nandun ang mga taga-media, and we just talked about in 2016, in a series of conferences, we talked about this drug menace. And Chito Tagle, Cardinal Chito Tagle, stressed during that time that the drug menace is not a criminal problem, rather it's a health medical problem. So there were conferences until nagsawa na po si former President Duterte and hindi na po pinapa-attend yung kanyang mga tao sa gobyerno. Secondly, si Cardinal Chito Tagle po, hindi natin masyadong alam. Ang nakilala natin was Father Flavio Villanueva with his drug rehabs. But the one that was footing the bill was for all of this, for the rehabilitation, was Cardinal Chito Tagle or the Archdiocese of Manila. So binuhay po lahat yan, pinalakas yung mga rehab. And finally, yung pong ubas. Ubas is ugnayan ng barangay at simbahan. Diba? Kasi nga po, yung war on drugs ni Pangulong Duterte went through the barangays. Yung tokhang, nagpapalista ka ng mga supposedly drug criminals sa barangay captain. No? So what Cardinal Chito Tagle, and I think it was very, it was very effective. What he did was confront that tokhang barangay system with another barangay system, which was the barangay at simbahan, ugnayan ng barangay at simbahan, ubas. So hindi po siya tahimik, napaka-busy. In the 3 years, 3 years lang po yan, that he was here before he was moved to Rome by Pope Francis.
Okay, Father Nolo, just on a final point, as the Cardinals go on their second day in the Conclave, what for you are the biggest pastoral challenges of the Catholic Church in this day and age, and what kind of Pope do we need?
Actually, we gave thanks to Pope Francis because he started facing all of these critical problems. So pastorally, we're losing the youth. The church is losing the youth. So we have to be able to confront that, to connect with them. So that's number one. Number two, pastoral as well. Pope Francis introduced synodality. Okay, so in response to the problem of clericalism in the church, diba? So greater participation of everyone in the church. Because as I mentioned already, for Pope Francis, the church is all about mission, and we can do our mission as a church if we all, participate in the church, cooperate with one another. And of course, Pope Francis also focused on global issues like global warming with Laudato Si. It was one of his advocacies. Number two, of course, the problem of immigration or migrants and refugees who are now counting in the millions. So, and of course, poverty. He loved the poor. He asked the church to go to the margins, go to the peripheries. So, nasimula na po ni Pope Francis ang lahat po ng mga yan. What we need, because he was a breath of fresh air for the church when he became Pope, what we need is that his successor would be like Pope Francis, and perhaps mas ipakita pa ito. The next Pope should pursue all of this na nasimulan na po ni Pope Francis.
Spoken like a true Jesuit, as they say, this conclave is a referendum on the papacy of Pope Francis, and we will see that in the days to come as we head on to the second day of the conclave. Maraming salamat. Thank you so much for joining us this morning. We have Jesuit Communications Philippines Executive Director, Father Nono Alfonso S.J.
Thank you.
Stay tuned. The Morning Matters will be back right after a short break. Welcome back. You're still watching Morning Matters here on One News. The International Criminal Court has rejected former President Rodrigo Duterte's defense request to remove 2 judges from ruling on its jurisdiction over the case. These are Judges Rain Adelaide Sophie Alapini Gansu and Maria del Socorro Flores Liera. The ICC cited that under Article 41 of the Rome Statute and Rules 34 and 35, only the judges themselves may request to be excused from a case. Meantime, Justice Secretary Jesus Crispin Remulla says he will answer Senator Amy Marcos's complaint over Duterte's arrest before the Ombudsman. He questioned why the case moved forward without a full committee report, calling it strange and hasty. He claimed the complaint was politically motivated and aimed at election publicity. Other officials named in the complaint include Interior Secretary John Vic Remulla and Police Chief Romel Marbil.
It's actually the complaint itself, parang na-weirdan ako kasi hindi naman committee report eh. What was contained was a chairman's report. So that's a little strange. Pagtapos ng election, tama na yun. Gusto lang talaga makakuha ng publicity tungkol sa election. Wala tayong magagawa.
Let's talk about that story with ICC Assistant to Counsel, Attorney Cristina Conti, who joins us today on Morning Matters. Welcome back, Attorney.
Yes, good morning, Gretchen.
Good morning. All right. Tell us more about the request of the defense that has been rejected by the ICC, the removal of 2 judges from the jurisdiction case. What's the story behind that?
Well, we just found out that apparently at the same time that the defense filed a question or a challenge over the jurisdiction, they asked 2 out of the 3 judges to, in our terms, to inhibit themselves or to take themselves out of the team, which would require, and this would be in a sense logistically a delaying tactic, because you cannot have just one judge decide on this matter, and therefore there should have been, if they were successful, there should have been some sort of assignment or reassignment of judges. But anyway, they were asking for the inhibition, we're going to use that in the Philippine context, inhibition of 2 judges, saying that they could have already prejudged the situation, considering that they had been part of the original team. Buti na lang, the pre-trial chamber said, well, we're not going to do that because it's not proper, and we're going to proceed with the team of 3 as we have already been proceeding. Kaya kumbaga tuloy lang. Yung rejection na ito, we think, the application, this kind of move, we think is just one part of the arsenal of the Duterte camp to, in one way, to stretch out the proceedings, and on another hand, to really question everything that goes their way.
Okay, when you say original team, is that the team that decided on the jurisdiction of this case, I think back in 2021, if I recall it correctly?
That's correct to a point. This was the original team that was assigned to the case, which authorized the opening of an investigation. They weren't really actually asked to decide on quote-unquote jurisdiction. Ang tinanong sa kanila, can we, starting from the preliminary examination, open an investigation? Meaning, can we look at who are most responsible? Of course, the defense will say, ibig sabihin nun, may underlying na question, meron ba tayong jurisdiction? But that was not explicitly questioned at that time. Kaya, para sa defense, hirap din sila because at that point, they weren't in the picture yet. So essentially, this is the first time that jurisdiction has been directly challenged, which is why, for me, it was ludicrous for them to ask for the recusal of these 2 judges, because it's as if saying anybody who decided earlier on any question pertaining to jurisdiction, bawal lang mag-decide any further. E di ang mangyayari, new judge tayo, every process thereafter. Sasabihin na, baka kasi ma-prejudge nyo na. So, itong mga judges na kaharap natin, baka sabihin ako, hindi na kayo pwedeng mag-decide on any further matter. Papalitan yan every issue. Ang hirap naman na ganun.
And therefore, the integrity of those judges also being questioned.
Yes.
Is that correct? Okay.
Yes, but they did it in a very polite manner.
Well, attorney, you mentioned that their defense was laughable. Which part of it was laughable? And Article 12 was brought up by attorney Kaufman, saying that they were questioning when the court's jurisdiction was triggered and not when the crimes were committed. Which part
Yeah,
was
well,
laughable?
well, laughable in the sense that we've been at this for so long, tapos biglang madidismiss lang. So, there's context to it, and I've been talking about there's the distinction of jurisdiction and exercise of jurisdiction. So, parang paulit-ulit na kasi na may jurisdiction yung ICC nung panahon na miyembro tayo. And that would really be incongruous with us signing the Rome Statute. Kaya natin pinirmahan yun with parang with the intention of being covered at the time that we were a member. Ngayon, ang dadagdag pa palang requirement, dapat pala naka-akto o may ginawa yung ICC nung panahon na yon. At yung ginawa, required na maging investigation. What we've been putting forward is the defense conveniently overlooked a stage or a portion of the, generically, of the investigation that is termed preliminary examination that was opened at the time when we were a member of the court. Kaya if you look at their submission, may date silang skinip, which was February 2018, clearly within the period we were a member, which was the time that the Office of the Prosecutor opened a preliminary examination. Kaya even with their own logic, sabi nila, kailangan may nabuksan na quote-unquote investigation nung panahon na member tayo. Investigation with a capital I talks about, well, that happened in 2021, but we had a preliminary examination or an ICC proceeding happening in 2018.
Attorney Conti, another thing that was brought up by Attorney Kaufman was that you and Attorney Joel Batuyan were not approved to be representatives of the victims, but rather the OPCV. Is there truth to that?
Well, no, because we have not yet even applied as legal representatives. It's because our clients, the victims, have not even been invited yet to qualify. We previously put out communications regarding application of victims so that they can be called victims of the case. However, that application period has not opened yet. Kumbaga, hindi pa po bukas yung registration. Only after the completion of that period will the appointment of a common legal representative be made. However, and this is important to put out, hindi naman pwedeng mabura yung mahigit 8 taon na naming pagtulong dun sa mga biktima. We do represent the victims in other capacities, in other proceedings, and in fact, generally, we do represent their interests. So, I thought it was really unethical and unfair for Ms. Attorney Kaufman to say that, considering that he's been on this case for only 2 months between us,
Yes.
lawyers, and the victims,
Attorney Conti,
and him.
we don't have much time, no, but I'd just like to get your thoughts on the effect of this jurisdiction case. Will it be solved before the confirmation of charges hearing in September? Do we expect that? And what are the timelines? Have they been moved? What is the effort, or what are the efforts of the prosecution?
So I can speak for the prosecution because I'm not part of the prosecution, but for the court as well, we're waiting for their instruction. They can settle this issue before September, or they can talk about jurisdiction and the confirmation of charges in September together. So we're looking for that cue, but hopefully we finish this issue before September so that we can proceed on the merits of the case already. There's no timelines yet, where everybody's waiting for the ICC announcement and the schedules. But what we have would be, if we were to continue, by July we will have possible charges. By September, we will have the hearing on these charges and the answer of the defense.
All right,
Meanwhile,
thank you
tuloy
so
lang
much.
ang regular
Tuloy lang.
schedule.
Thank you so much for those updates and for clarifying the issues behind the headlines. That was ICC Assistant to Counsel Attorney Cristina Conti.
Thank you.
And that wraps up today's episode of Morning Matters. We hope we've given you the right start to your morning. Let's make the day matter. My name is Gretchen Ho. We are One News, all sides, all the time.